What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and whoo, yeah. Oh, that was interesting. Um, yeah, not exactly the most clean result. It was very scrappy at the end, obviously. Not exactly the most comfortable result either. But I mean, getting the win on the road, being a man down for a majority of the game, honestly, it was very impressive by the end. I was very impressed overall with the performance and with some of the players out there. So, just going to go ahead and talk about, obviously, the game defining moments. First of all, the goal. Good delivery in from Julian. Nice little cross into the front post. Not enough teams utilize that. It is very difficult when you drive a ball at the near post and somebody's running onto it. It's very difficult to deal with that. And sure enough, I think it was McCann was there, puts the defender off. He hits it right at his keeper, who smacks it straight up in the air. Tito off the crossbar, off the defender and in. A little bit lucky on the deflections to go in, but it was well deserved. It was well worked goal. We did have a few chances after that to maybe get a second one to put the game to bed, but Tito had a one-on-one situation where he kind of poked it right at the keeper because it got away from him a little bit. There was another one we were breaking out. McCann, or was it Chris? Yeah, Chris McCann was on the left side, wide open for Joseph to slot him over, and for some reason decided to go the other side, and that's where most of their defenders stepped over to. So we really did dominate most of the first half, but then that red card, and I'll talk about this a bit more when we get to individuals, but Perez has been that player this season that's really been frustrating for me. Last season, it was Julian Gressel. That player that it feels like he's making too many mistakes on the ball. It feels like he's not quick enough. It feels like anytime he's on the pitch, I'm worried about what he's going to do whenever he's around it. That's become Perez this season. From the beginning of preseason to now, it feels like every game there's something. Watching him give away goal after goal in the first game, watching him gift the opposition a goal a game when we were at home, taking away our clean sheet. Those little moments where he just shuts off mentally. First minute of the game, not even past the first minute of the game. In the first minute of the game, ball goes in behind, he lets the man roll him and get him behind him, and then he drags him down. Yellow card right away. And it's a definite yellow. Because you let him get in behind you, you didn't turn on, and then you drag him down. Yellow card. And, I mean, obviously he kind of had to as soon as he got beat, but you shouldn't be getting beat in the first place. And then, on a yellow card, ball goes out of bounds, and you decide to shoulder charge a guy into the boards when the ball's out of play, not even trying to play the ball. I mean, it's an obvious yellow, and you're already on a yellow. Guess what? 2 yellows equals a red. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, Perez, but that's how it works in football. And it's just like, there's no sense. And it feels like he's been that player. He's been a player without sense for most of this season. Anytime a call goes against him, he's complaining. He's arguing with the referees instead of doing his defensive work. He's always got something to say. He's always distracted by something else instead of getting organized, getting ready to defend. He's been that player this season, and it's been killing us. And then he gets sent off so early in this game. That's a killer. When you got to play a man down for a majority of the game, that is killing your teammates. Obviously they did well, but I mean it's still something that's very difficult to have to work with, and you put them in that position because you had to go and be an idiot. So I'm really frustrated with him. As far as that's a little bit more individuals. I do want to talk about the lineup. We went with the same formation, which I still really, really like the formation, having Michael in the center of the back three. I thought they might go with maybe Greg and Perez as the flanking center backs, just because, kind of like Escobar, Greg is also more of a fullback, and so I thought maybe they'd slide in a fullback to play that other, but they ended up going with Greg on the wing and Chris McCann as the left center back. It worked out pretty well. Chris did a pretty good job back there. I don't think he was flawless, but for a player that normally plays more of a wing / midfielder, I think he really did slot in there very well tonight. So yeah, I thought it ended up working out very well, which it's good to see. Not exactly my first choice, but if it works out, it works out. So maybe maybe they see something in training that I'm not seeing out of Chris, but I never thought he could play that position as well as he did tonight. So good for him. And then of course the rest of it was pretty much unchanged. You got Julian on the right, which once again it's his perfect position. It's where he needs to play. The front three of Miguel, Joseph, and Tito is just very deadly, and then the partnership of Jeff and Darlington in the middle is perfect. So all in all, the lineup works out very well. And now as far as the individual performances, Brad obviously had to make a lot of saves near the end of the game. Really was called upon several times and stepped up. It's one of those things where obviously you want your defense, your midfield to shut down the shot, not let them have chances, but they are going to get a few chances every now and then because you're down a man. It's going to happen. And so you want your keeper to step up in those moments where they do get chances, and he did. The only one where he was beaten was the one that went off the outside of the post, so it wasn't even really that close. So I don't know. I really like having a keeper in there that I feel like I can trust to make these good saves to keep us in the game and end up keeping the clean sheet in the end. The back three, obviously Perez, I've already talked about him. The main frustration I'm having right now is I don't know what we're gonna do to replace him. Obviously Chris has done well slotting in there. Franco, he can step back in whenever he comes back from his concussion, and He's also had some issues, but he's done okay. He's not nearly as error prone as Perez has been. But my biggest concern would be if they decide to drop Jeff back into the back three. I feel like that would really take away from our midfield. So I hope that doesn't end up happening. I hope Perez being selfish and stupid doesn't end up costing us as far as having to switch players out of their best positions. But we'll see. But yeah, obviously Michael did very well. Once again, another very strong leader-like performance from him. Very physical, very aggressive, did well to win the ball several times. So I love watching him play. He is such a smart and just all-around a good player. He's that type of player that you want your kids to watch and be like, you should be playing more like Michael Parkhurst, because he is the type of player that epitomizes the hard work and the dedication to go win the ball, especially for a defender. It's you just don't have that many defenders like that in the MLS from what I can see. Obviously I don't watch every game, but the ones that I do watch, whenever teams come and play us, I don't see defenders as willing to just go in and take a hit. John Terry-esque, because I'm a Chelsea fan. That type of player that's willing to put his head where it's going to hurt just to keep the ball out of the back of the net. That is such a good quality to have. So love watching him play, and once again, another great performance. Chris, like I said, surprisingly good performance from him, from a player that I did not think could slot into that center back position. So maybe that's going to be a place that he can step in and take over if Perez doesn't step his game up, and maybe it'll help keep Jeff out of the midfield, hopefully. But I do think that is a good position for him to play. I thought after the who do we play? It wasn't DC, it was the other game. Vancouver. After the Vancouver game, I honestly thought, looking at him playing that left wing back, that's a good position for him. I think he could take that spot. And now watching him play this one, I'm like, okay, that's a pretty good position for him too. So I think the only one that I've really had an issue with him is the left back and then the center mid positions. I don't think those two work very well for him. I'm not sure why, but these other two, the left wing back and the center left back, they both worked pretty well. So I guess he's starting to find a place in the team for him a little bit better, so that's good to see. As far as the wing backs are concerned, Greg did well. He wasn't really outstanding. There were some times where I felt like he should have kept possession of the ball a little bit better, but he was a little bit too rushed. And it felt like he wasn't really sharp sometimes. Part of it is, he's still dealing with a bit of an injury, and you can see he lacks a bit of fitness. He doesn't really have that same speed that we saw at the beginning of last year. You can see the injury from last year took that away from him. So it's a lot more of just a hard work that he can bring to the field. But he does well defensively. It's just whenever he does win the ball, it feels like that part of his game has really gone downhill. The quickness that he had last year to combine and all that, it doesn't feel like it's there anymore. And so I don't see that from him as much, and so whenever we need him to keep possession and move the ball around, it doesn't happen, and then he loses possession, and now we're in trouble again. So But the defensive side of his game today was fantastic, so good to see from him. Julian on the right side, first part of the game was fine, did well on that right wing back position again, but then whenever we lost Perez and we had to be a bit more defensive, that's where he started to drop off a little bit. And it's not because, I know I've had my problems with him in the past, but this was not about his lack of effort or his lack of ability. Like I had an issue with last season. It was more just he's not really a defensive player. That's not his strong suit. And so whenever you have to play more defensive, he's more the type of player that wants to get up the field and help out up there. He will work back, but it's just not the first thing that comes to his mind. That's not how he naturally wants to play. So that part of it was really hindering his game today, and so I will give him that. That he was pretty much hurt by the fact that we were down to 10 men. But first half he did well. Into the midfield, Jeff and Darlington in the middle both played pretty well. Obviously, Jeff, hopefully not too bad of an injury. It looked like it might be a hyperextension of the knee, I hope. It definitely looked like his knee kind of a little bit of a pop whenever he went to step on that one challenge. So hopefully it's nothing too bad. Obviously, with knee injuries, it's always really scary. Anytime you see a player getting helped off the field, you really hope it's not that bad of a knee injury, especially to somebody as important to our team as Jeff is. As soon as he goes off the field, the chances started getting more dangerous because he just has that sense of where to position himself to block shots, to get on the end of crosses. He's just like Michael in that he's a very smart defender, but he's a defensive midfielder. He's not really a defender per se. So it's nice to have somebody like that in the midfield who can step in, block shots from outside the box, win challenges in the air, so that way they're not counterattacking on us as much. Just anytime he's on the field, we look a better team whenever he's in the midfield. And then Darlington, his defensive work rate today was really good. Similar to Greg, I feel like it should be a bit better as far as keeping possession. There was that one point in stoppage time where he did very well to keep possession, and he and Kevin combined, and he managed to get us a foul right outside the box. So, he did have his moments here and there, but I think overall it wasn't really connecting today. He wasn't really connecting as much with the people around him as far as trying to keep possession. So he was like looking for passes that weren't there. And so it ended up just being a lot of mishit passes or misplaced passes to nobody. So it didn't feel like he was connecting with the people around him very well. But defensively, pretty much everybody today defensively did pretty well. So, and then the front three, Tito, first half looked pretty good. Was working really hard, getting in behind. That front three of our attack just looks really good when we're in fluid motion. But then once we had to go defensive, yeah, he kind of disappeared, which is to be expected because he's not a defensive player. That's not his game. So you're not going to see much out of him whenever you have to play more defensive. He's going to try to stay up and get on the ball and try to do something, but they're just going to put three guys on him and make sure he can't go anywhere. So, yeah, I'm a little bit frustrated for him that Perez had to get himself sent off because I do feel like that does hinder him, but I do appreciate the hard work he put in the first half and obviously causing the goal with the header. So, overall, not bad from him. Miguel worked his butt off today. He kind of went unappreciated. A lot of them were talking about Chris McCann, or not a lot of them, the announcers were talking about Chris McCann. Oh, look, he's not a center back. He slotted back there. He did well. Not a lot of people were talking about Miguel. He is not a defensive player, and yet he is tracking back. He's going to win the ball. It was a good performance from him as far as the defensive side of the game, and that's not something I normally attribute to Miguel. So I really thought he worked very hard to go win the ball back, to put pressure, especially on their most creative player, Ibsen, I think was his name. I mean, he was all over him anytime he had the ball, and that is so important because you can't let their most creative player have time to just pick out a pass. So the fact that Miguel was willing to step back, help out there, was fantastic, and he also provided some breaks. The attack part of the game is where he really does shine more, and so whenever he turns on that pace and gets past that first defender, and now he's into their backfield being tracked by two defenders, well, now we have time to rest in defense. So it's always good to have a player like that can help you up top and sort of get the ball out to get it away from your defense and let them get a break. Joseph Martinez, first half, was getting involved. Second half, it was really, you could see it was frustrating for him because you've got three defenders to battle against. He did work very hard, but by the end of the game, you could tell he was pretty much dead. So I don't, obviously, I'm not going to say, oh, that you got to work harder than that. It's hard to do that for 90 something minutes, especially whenever you're pretty much isolated for most of the second half and you're having to battle against three defenders. There's not a whole lot you can do. So he did put a lot of hard work in at the beginning of the second half to try to get the ball when he could. And there were moments near the end of the second half where he did work hard to try to keep possession for a second and try to find a pass to give us a chance to get out. So I appreciate the hard work he put in. There were a few moments where he did sort of turn off. Not like, oh, he was tired and couldn't make the run, but like he turned off because he was frustrated. He still does have that in him, and whenever he gets in that mood, that's really where I get frustrated with him. But overall, I do think he did put in some good work in the second half, so it was good to see. As far as the subs that came in, the first one that came on, I'm trying to remember which one came on first. I think Sal Ciso came on first for Tito. This one was, obviously a defensive sub. I'm not really fully sold on Sal Ciso. In preseason, he just didn't really bring a whole lot to the game whenever he was playing at right back. It didn't feel like he really provided much on the attack, and then defensively he was okay but not great. He did a few good defensive plays every now and then, but for the most part it felt like he was just getting beat a little too easily. It felt like it was too easy to run past him, like he didn't really have a lot of pace to him, and also didn't know how to use his strength. So I wasn't really convinced with him in preseason, and in this game he didn't. I will grant him the fact that you're coming off the bench and it's freezing weather. It can be difficult to get into a game on those terms, but it still feels like after the first few minutes you get some runs in, you get yourself moving around, you should be a bit more involved, but it didn't feel like he ever really got involved. I never really remember like good challenges from Sal or anything like that. In fact, there was one I remember cross towards the back post, and it should be just a header away from him, and he can hardly get off the ground, and it flicks off his head right into the attacker behind him, and then all of a sudden he sets up a good chance. Moments like that, it makes me feel like he's just not quite good enough. We did get him for free, so it's not like, oh, we wasted money or anything. But I am kind of concerned that this is our backup. If we have injuries, if Franco's not ready, is this going to be the guy they slot in at that third center back position? I'm kind of worried that might be the case, but maybe he'll improve. I want to say he's a bit older, like maybe 30-ish. I'm not entirely sure how old he is, but I want to see a bit more improvement from him, just because I haven't seen enough to convince me that yes, he definitely deserves at least a backup position. The next one to come on, surprisingly, Andrew Wheeler-Omiunu, a player that I have seen play before. Last year, we went to Kennesaw State to watch them play Charleston Battery in the Open Cup, and Wheeler-Omiunu did get some playing time in that game. So I do remember watching him play. I don't really remember seeing much out of him. I remember there were a couple guys that I'm just like, they better never play for us again, and I don't think they did. But he was one that was like, he wasn't good, he wasn't bad, he was just kind of out there. He never really got involved. And so when he was put in, I'm just like, what am I going to expect? He's going in for Jeff, who was injured at the time. And so I'm like, what's he gonna bring? Is he gonna bring something different than Kevin will? Because Kevin normally would be the replacement for Jeff. So bringing him on means you do trust him to get out there and work his butt off defensively. And he did. I was actually really impressed watching him. He wasn't very clinical with his clearances. It wasn't the same as Jeff, who's just very smart, and anytime it goes near him, he's going to get it out. But it was very hard work. It was very good hard work. It was just overall that player that he's going to get on the end of it. He's not necessarily going to get it out clearly. It's going to be maybe a header back towards the middle that might put it in danger play again. But he is going to get there. He is going to put himself in a position to where he can win the ball. And he has a bit of speed on him too. So, I don't know. I liked watching him work around the field. Even if it wasn't great, the work ethic that I saw made me think, okay, he is a player that might be able to provide in the future. I think they said he's 23, so still pretty young too. So hopefully he can grow as a player, get a bit more of a touch maybe, because that's probably the only thing that I would say today that I didn't really see much of, is that kind of the calmness to be like, okay, I need to get it out, not headed back towards the middle or not headed straight up. I need to get it away or kick it away, whatever it took. So, but yeah, overall, I was impressed with his hard work. So hopefully that's something he can keep bringing to the field. And if Jeff is out for a little while, hopefully it's something that he will be good enough to play in the next few games. And then the last one, Kevin came on for Julian. At the time, I was kind of wondering, maybe do we get Romario on, just because he's a player that's proven he can work hard to win the ball back, and on top of that, big body for all these crosses coming in. But for the one hand, you don't want to take Joseph off because he's still dangerous up top. You can't just leave him alone up there. And so they do have to keep 2 or 3 defenders back to keep track of him. So it is something to where they can't flood as many men forward when you've got him up top. And on top of that, Julian had started really just checking out of the play. You could see his legs were pretty much gone. So bringing in Kevin at that point was just another midfielder that's going to work hard to win the ball and get it out. So, I mean, he came on, did pretty well defensively. There was that one moment, like I said earlier, he and Darlington combined up top to win a free kick and give our defenders some rest. So overall, it was still a good game. It was a good feeling to get the win. It's one of those, whenever the game is finally over, you take a deep breath, you're like, oh, thank goodness. But there are problems that do need to be fixed. Obviously, the big one is Perez. How do you replace him? Do you replace him, or do you say, hey, get your butt in gear or else you're done? How do you work with that? How do you work with a player who hasn't been playing well and now is just being stupid and getting himself sent off and hurting the rest of the team because of it? It's a difficult situation to be in. And I don't envy Tata's position right now with him, especially because we haven't really gone and gotten anybody that can play that position back there. So it's going to be difficult going forward. Obviously, Jeff, hopefully it's not that bad of an injury. We'll have to see. Greg looked like his shoulder was hurting for most of this game, so it feels like there are some injuries, some little niggling injuries that are going to keep a couple people out. Obviously, Ezekiel's still out. Andrew had strep throat today. We got all these players that are just not available to us, and it kind of feels like everything's up against us. So, but get the win on the road, especially, is a big thing for us. It's 3 in a row. The Houston match feels like it's just a distant memory. Oh, that was last season. We are now in this season with these 3 wins in a row. So hopefully we continue. We got obviously the game coming up this next weekend. A very informed LAFC. Even if they did lose to Galaxy today, that was just because of Zlatan. Gotta admit, I did not think he was going to come on and make an instant impact like that, and then he does. And now I feel bad because I was making fun of him. Anyway, but yeah, obviously they are riding the high of their first season. They've done well. They've had some good wins. They started off the season very well, so now we have to be prepared for them to come in. A lot of energy, a lot of just this fast pace, like we want to work to win the ball, similar to how we were at the beginning of last season. So we got to make sure we shut them down. Don't let them have any joy. Don't let them have time to play and move the ball and come at us. Make sure we shut down the game, keep it at our momentum, keep it at our pace, and we should be fine. But I'll be looking forward to it. I don't know if I'll be able to go because I think I'm working again. It's fantastic. But with all that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this game? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United reviews. I'll see you guys in the next game. Peace out.